At a funeral, Ray White and his friends stand by a grave, mourning someone's death. One friend hugs him. On the battlefield, Ray runs toward Howard, who has been badly hurt. With his last breath, Howard tells Ray that he needs to live. Ray looks around and sees another friend dead, and he screams. An ice dome surrounds him as he lifts his friend. At the Arnold Academy of Sorcery, Ray helps a girl who is about to fall. One of her friends is surprised to see a freshman already in action on the first day. They realize he is just an ordinary boy, and the girl feels disgusted. Albert and his crew meet up with Ray. Ray tries to shake his hand while introducing himself, but Albert slaps his hand away. He says only nobles should be at their school since it's known for producing noble honorary students. Ray responds, wanting to learn something from the school. This angers Albert, and he attacks Ray, but Ray dodges him. Albert tries again, but Rose tells him to stop. Rose is one of the top 3 nobles at the school. Albert scoffs at Ray, saying someone so ordinary doesn't belong in the academy. He leaves, and his followers follow suit. Rose approaches Ray and asks if he's alright. He replies that he is, and she introduces herself as Amelia Rose. Rose extends her hand, and Ray shakes it. She mentions that a regular student like Ray must be very talented to be enrolled in their academy. She invites him to talk to her if he encounters any challenges. In the school hall, the freshmen are briefed by their principal. She advises them to work hard and not to be proud despite being selected by the school. The principal introduces herself as Abby Garnett before leaving. Amelia Rose is called to the stage. She introduces herself as the representative of the incoming students. She picks up from where the principal left off, encouraging her peers to work hard. Ray is assigned to a class. His teacher, Helena Grady, asks him to introduce himself to his classmates. Ray does what he's told and briefly speaks to Amelia before taking his seat. Albert grits his teeth at the sight of Ray. Ray sits by the window, lost in thought. Miss Gray throws a chalk piece at him to bring him back to class. Ray catches it by instinct, but it explodes in his face. She tells him to pay attention, and he apologizes. Miss Gray asks the students about the ranks of sorcery. Amelia stands up and answers that there are 5 ranks: bronze, silver, gold, platinum, and the sacred rank, grand. The teacher confirms her answer and tells the class that only 7 grand sorcerers exist at any given time, calling them the world's 7 greatest sorcerers. Miss Gray calls the existence of these 7 a mystery. One of them is their principal, Abby Garnett, the Blaze Sorcerer. She mentions Carol Caroline, the spellbinding sorcerer who has made a name for herself as a grand sorcerer. She talks about the Iceblade sorcerer from the Far East, who disappeared after ending the Far East War. She states that they know nothing about the other grand sorcerers. Gray tells them that as long as they attend Arnold Academy, their ultimate goal is to become a grand sorcerer. Arnold raises his hand and asks why an ordinary person is allowed in their school, but Gray shuts him down, saying all students in the class pass the required exams and interviews. She concludes that being noble or ordinary doesn't mean anything. Miss Gray teaches the next lesson, where they practice sorcery. She asks Amelia to define sorcery. Amelia explains that sorcery is the art of reconstructing prima materia, the fundamental building block of matter in their world. Miss Gray praises Amelia and discusses the code of sorcery, showcasing it to the class. The stages involve encoding and decoding the prima materia until it materializes. She creates ice flowers and dissolves them. Rose asks Miss Gray if there are limits to what can be reconstructed with prima materia, and the teacher says there are no limits. Miss Gray categorizes matter into 4 types, explaining that anything else is called a phenomenon. A hooded girl in the back asks the teacher if she used anti-material code to disintegrate the ice flowers. However, the teacher replies that it's different and that students shouldn't worry about that level of sorcery. She instructs the class to begin, and Rose follows the procedure shown by her teacher to create an ice flower. Wanda praises her for it. The students look at Ray, who struggles to produce an ice cube. Albert gets upset with Ray and says he refuses to acknowledge him. After class, Ray wanders the hallway, admiring the school's design. He spots the hooded girl who questioned Miss Gray earlier entering the library. He follows her and introduces himself. She calls herself Elisa. Elisa sits with Ray and mentions that Dr. Ainsworth is her role model. She asks if he likes Dr. Ainsworth, and Ray admits he loves the author. Elisa talks excitedly, and her hoodie slips, revealing her pointy ears. She gets embarrassed and tries to hide them, but Ray reassures her that he doesn't mind. She tells him he seems more mature than his age, and Ray acknowledges he's been told that before. He compliments her ears, making Elisa blush. Ray praises Elisa, and she appears happy with him. He sees her off after school, expressing hope to see her again. Ray then goes to a room and meets Evie Armstrong. Evie approaches him, saying it doesn't matter if he's noble or ordinary. They shake hands and confirm they are both built. Ray and Evie are roommates. The next morning, Ray goes for his morning lap and startles Rebecca. He apologizes, but she compliments him on his impressive effort. Ray introduces himself, and Rebecca says he's the first ordinary student at the academy. She introduces herself as a third-year student named Rebecca Bradley. On the way to school, Ray talks to Evie about Rebecca, and Evie informs him that the Bradleys are one of the three powerful families. He mentions Rose, Bradley, and Olgren, stating that these three families are as powerful as royal families. He explains that Amelia is the first daughter of the Rose family. Upon reaching the school, they part ways, and Evie reminds Ray to be early for swordsmanship class. Ray leaves him and bumps into a blonde girl. She tells him to apologize, even though she was the one who ran into him. Ray complies and compliments her pigtails. She smiles and introduces herself as Clarice Cleveland. Not knowing her family, Ray apologizes again, but adds that she's cute. He asks why she is in a hurry, and she recalls something and dashes away. Ray meets the principal and addresses her as Colonel. She tells him not to call her that since they've both retired. She asks him to call her Abby, and he does. She laughs, saying he hasn't changed a bit. She gazes at a photo on her table and says Ray is bringing back memories for her. Albert and Ray are set to face off during the swordsmanship session. The instructor informs them it's just a mock battle and he'll step in if it gets serious. Albert calls Ray a withered wizard and says it was nice knowing him. Evie approaches Amelia and introduces himself as Ray's friend. The other students worry about Ray, but when the mock battle starts, Ray easily deflects Albert's attack. Albert picks up his stick and strikes Ray, but Ray breaks it with the tip of his sword stick. Abby watches from afar, smiling and calling Ray the Ice Blade Sorcerer. She says she's glad he's enjoying his student life. Evie and Ray are working out in a gym. Evie asks Ray if he's in 2 clubs, and Ray confirms he is. He expresses his excitement about finally being in the academy and vows to do everything he can. Evie warns him it'll be tough, but Ray tells him not to worry. He shows Evie a golden card and assures him he'll be fine. Ray steps into a room filled with muscular students. He talks to the leader about wanting to join their environmental research club. The other members boast about how fearless one must be to be part of their research club. The leader looks at Ray and asks him to take off his shirt since he doesn't seem bulky enough. Ray quickly takes off his shirt, showing his muscular physique. The leader praises Ray for his body and pulls out a card. He inquires if Ray has a golf hunter license. When Ray shows it to him, the members are surprised that an ordinary person can have a gold license. The research club leader approaches Ray, shakes his hand, and officially welcomes him as a new member of their club. Ray moves on to another club and expresses his interest in joining. He speaks to Rebecca, the leader of the club, about being fascinated by living plants. She asks if he likes flowers, and he says he does. Rebecca checks if he'll mind being the only boy, and he replies he has no trouble communicating with women. Danny jumps in and tells Rebecca the only reason Ray wants to join is that he has a crush on her. The students start to gossip, but Rebecca calms them down. She assigns Dina to handle Ray's case. Dina introduces herself and believes he'll show his true intentions soon. She will evaluate him to see if he's worthy of becoming a member. Ray is taken to an open area on the roof. He's tasked with transforming the weed-infested space into a garden within a week. She leaves him, thinking luck won't be enough for him to accomplish that. On the first day, Ray clears all the weeds. On the second day, he softens the soil with a hoe. On the third day, he builds garden walls. Rebecca checks on him and brings him sandwiches. She mentions she's the student council president and that he can always come to her with questions. They hear some students practicing swordplay and go to watch. Rebecca tells him about an upcoming magic sword tournament to find the best magic sword fighter. She asks if he'll participate, and he says he'll think about it. She notices his biceps and asks if she can touch them. Ray agrees, and she feels them, complimenting their shape. Ray explains he trained in the backwood forest. Rebecca admits it's her first time touching a man's muscles. Wanda and her group peek at Ray and Rebecca through a window, concluding Ray is trying to get close to Rebecca because she's from one of the top 3 noble families. Amelia observes them from another window. By the 4th day, Ray has arranged the garden so impressively that it just needs flowers. Danny walks by, and Rebecca asks them to bring in flowers. Ray strolls along a path, recalling Abby assigning him a mission. She hands him a letter discussing a spire from the Empire inside the kingdom. Abby suspects a spy might have infiltrated the academy, and the staff has been informed. She tells him to report back to her if he finds anything, asking him to do it secretly and as soon as possible. Ray spots Clarice and calls out to her. She starts in surprise but relaxes when she sees it's him. He asks what she's doing crouching down, and she shares her interest in bugs. He tells her that's not a strange hobby because he likes bugs too. Ray calls Clarice his friend, and she reacts oddly. He apologizes, but she says she's never had a friend before. She is thrilled to be making her first friend. Ray mentions that the sun is setting and expresses his desire to talk about the insects he saw in the forest. He promises to share next time and compliments her for being enjoyable to talk to. She blushes, says goodbye, and walks away. The next day, Miss Gray teaches her class about the derivation of sorcery. She explains that the topic is technical. Gray asks Ray to tell the class what he knows about it. Ray mentions the major categories of sorcery: low grade, mid grade, high grade, and holy grade. He discusses other aspects like being quick, remote, chain, delay, material shift, extensive, and extensive chain, calling them the 7 derivations of sorcery. Miss Gray praises him for being correct and commends his studying. Some students are happy and surprised, while Albert seems annoyed. Miss Gray informs the class that they will be having a practical exercise in the Kafka forest. She asks them to form groups of 4 beforehand. The classmates start pairing up, and Ray wonders who will partner with him. Evie approaches him and decides to team up. Ray notices Elisa all alone and goes to meet her. He invites her to join his group, but she says she'd be a burden. Ray lifts her chin and insists that his team needs her. She blushes and accepts the invitation. Amelia asks if they have an open spot, and Ray confirms. The class is shocked to see a top noble wanting to join Ray's team. In the forest, Miss Gray explains that their goal is to reach the center. She reminds them not to forget to hit each checkpoint placed throughout the area. The number of stamps they collect will affect their final scores. She gives them 24 hours to complete the mission and warns them about the dangers of the forest. She advises against asking for help because doing so might force them to repeat the year. She instructs them to wait in the designated area until the start signal is given. Ray's team waits in their spot. Elisa looks worried, but Amelia reassures her. Evie tells Ray not to be nervous, and he admits he's feeling nostalgic about the forest. Ray explains that he's used to running around in forests and mountains. Amelia suggests that Ray and Evie be the vanguard, but Ray says he prefers to handle the middle and will assist as needed. He tells Amelia and Evie to take the lead. Miss Gray announces the start of the drill and fires a flare. The students rush into the forest from their designated spots. Ray's team encounters a monster, and he takes it down. They spot a stamp paper and apply their stamp. Other teams have their own experiences in the forest. At night, Ray's team camps by a fire. They discuss the day's events, including how Ray slayed monsters and gave useful advice. Ray mentions that he comes from the backwood forest, but Amelia is skeptical. She comments that Ray is different, but Evie chimes in, saying the same about Amelia. He tells her he didn't expect her to team up with an ordinary. Amelia says she dislikes classism and nobility. Ray asks if she's not proud of her status, but she replies that she hates the formalities. Amelia expresses frustration about the effort she put into becoming who she is. She shares how happy she is to interact with them before playfully calling Elisa cute. Evie tells Ray that the team is counting on him, which reminds him of a comrade's similar words. Ray feels a bit sad and wonders if he deserves to enjoy his life. Amelia notices his mood and calls out to him. He tells them to get ready for the next day and go to bed. Ray keeps watch over them as they sleep, recalling his master in a wheelchair, telling him to reveal himself only to friends he can trust. He wonders what he should do. The next day, as Ray's group sets out, they hear a scream, and Ray immediately runs toward the sound. He finds Albert's team trapped by a monster and attacks it. Ray defeats the monster and offers his hand to Albert, who rejects it, saying he doesn't need Ray's help. Amelia asks if he really defeated the monster alone, and he confirms. She wants to know who he is. In the woods, a hidden figure controls the defeated monster, which rises up looking stronger. The monster looks scarier than before. It growls at the students, making them scream. Ray glares at it. Clarice's group is nearby, and she hears the growl. Curious, she peeks around a tree to see it. Ray battles the monster and realizes it's tough. He nearly uses his ice power, but Amelia throws fire in front of the monster to give him some breathing room. Evie and Elisa team up and hit the monster with a rock. Ray follows up and tears it in two. Evie praises him, and Amelia gives Elisa a pat, who hugs her because she's scared. Ray looks at his team and sees his former teammates in them. Albert frees his teammate. Clarice hides behind a tree, impressed by Ray's strength. The cloaked figure controlling the monster vanishes. Ray's team marks their final paper as they reach the center of the forest. Elisa apologizes for being a burden, but Ray doesn't mind carrying her. He mentions it's part of the training he and Evie did in the forest. Amelia tickles Elisa, who's on Ray's back. After the drill, the instructor announces the results, giving Amelia's team first place, and Clarice happily claps for them. She notices another student looking at her coldly and wonders why the mood feels so tense. Evie points out that the students aren't thrilled with their performance. Elisa and Amelia congratulate each other for their hard work. In a certain house, Lydia sits in a wheelchair. Her maid tells her it's too early to worry. Lydia acknowledges this, but says it takes 3 days for a young boy to become someone new, and Ray has been away for 2 months. The maid assures her that Ray is nearby, prompting Lydia to look out the window for him. The maid says she'll go get Ray. She turns to see Lydia fixing her hair. When Ray arrives, they exchange pleasantries. Carla, the maid, takes Ray to meet Lydia. He sees her in a tidy room, and they introduce themselves. She invites him to sit. Lydia asks how he's doing, and he replies that he's okay, but he's not used to his new body. She mentions it will take about 5 years to use it properly, and reminds him that using his ice magic is forbidden. If he feels he must use it, he can, because she passed the title of the strongest ice sorcerer to him. Lydia says she called him to meet her because of rumors she heard among researchers. Ray questions whether she should be concerned about rumors. She tells him it's not just any rumor but relates to Engram. When Ray asks what she means, she explains that she's been studying something different from the sorcery code. He asks her what it is, and she tells him it involves the brain. Lydia states that the brain processes information and materializes when it interacts with the prima materia. She believes that announcing the twofold theory has sparked a new movement, noting that sorcery research is closely linked to the brain. She asks him about the part of the brain related to memories of sorcery, and he responds with Engram. She theorizes that studying the brain could lead to unraveling sorcery and uncovering truths about their world. She shows him a letter discussing how far people will go to get what they want. When Ray inquires about them, she names them eugenics. Lydia describes them as a group willing to cross moral lines for their desires. They reached out to her, expecting her to join them. As she speaks to Ray, she burns the letter. Lydia explains that the eugenics have been contacting sorcerers besides her. She insists that without human dignity, progress in sorcery is impossible. Ray takes Lydia outside for a walk, and she enjoys it. She reminisces about their training days together. Ray mentions it was the Ainsworth-style boot camp. She recalls it as a place that made the military quit. She asks if he's made any friends, and he confirms it. He tells her about Elisa, a friend who loves her books. She requests that he bring his friends next time he visits. Ray admits he didn't expect her to be excited, but she expresses her desire to meet the people who have brought a smile back to his face. They arrive at a tree, and Lydia notes that it's almost June. She mentions the Magic Chevalier competition starting soon and says she's won it 4 times in a row. Lydia tells Ray she believes he could do the same if he tries. Ray says he'd prefer to stay more in the background, partly because he's still recovering. She tells him to do what he likes since she can't protect him in her current state. Ray disagrees, but she gives him a small book and says it's for him. He thanks her, and she tells him to give her more compliments. Over the weekend, outside Elisa's dorm, Elisa sees Ray jogging past her. He stops and asks where she's headed. Elisa says she's going to the library and the bookstore in the Middle District. Ray asks if he can join her, which makes her blush. Later that day, Elisa puts on a cute outfit and apologizes for making Ray wait. He notices her outfit and compliments her. She thanks him and returns the compliment. Ray asks why she changed, and she says it's because they're both going out. At the library, Elisa struggles to reach a book, so Ray helps her out. He sees it's one of Lydia's works and praises Elisa for liking it. While they read, Elisa asks what he's reading, and he says it's a love novel by Luna Ether. He tells her he likes the book. After a while, they leave, and Clara spots them. She peeks at them, unsure how to approach, but Ray invites her to join them for lunch. At lunch, Ray introduces the girls, and he speaks so highly of them that they feel flattered. They chat about various things while eating. After lunch, Ray sees the girls off, and they say goodbye. He turns and sees Amelia. He talks to her, and she mentions how tiring things have been for her lately. She apologizes for venting, and he tells her it's fine. Amelia asks how his day went, and he shares it with her. She gets jealous and asks Ray to go out with her since they still have time. They go shopping, and she tries on different clothes. Ray compliments each one, and she feels flattered. She asks Ray why he seems comfortable around girls, and he explains that he grew up around women. While Amelia changes, she spots a spider and runs out of the changing room, clinging to Ray. Embarrassed because she's in her underwear, she quickly goes back inside. Ray apologizes for touching her skin, but she assures him it's not his fault. Amelia wonders if she should show her true self to him. Ray meets up with Miss Gray. She asks how his student life is, and he tells her he's enjoying it. She's surprised because she expected him to struggle at a noble school as an ordinary student. Miss Gray recalls other students who left the school because they couldn't handle the pressure from higher-ups. She assures him she's determined to support him as his teacher and tells him to come to her with any problems. Ray thanks her, saying he's lucky to have good friends and teachers. In the forest, Albert is training and shouting for Ray to wait for him. A cloaked figure watches him from the top of a tree and grins. Ray does squats with the members of his environmental research club. Evie asks them to buy protein after their meeting, but he declines. Ray meets Dina, who gives him the key to the club. She mentions he might get there before Rebecca, their president, and he agrees. After thanking her, Ray heads to the club room. He opens an inner door and finds Rebecca in her underwear, getting ready to change. He quickly closes the door and apologizes, but she screams. A bit later, she serves him tea and explains she finished her gym class early, which is why she decided to change in the club room. Ray apologizes again for the mix-up, and she reassures him it's not his fault. Feeling embarrassed, she asks him to forget it. Rebecca shows him a book about plants plants and mentions she found a plant that can do sorcery. She takes him to their garden and shows him a carnivorous plant. They discuss it, and then she pauses for a moment. When Ray asks what's wrong, she says she's just happy to teach a new member about plants. Ray mentions other club members she could also teach, but she explains that her political status makes it tough for them to be comfortable with her. She appreciates how easy it is to talk to him. Ray borrows her book, and they go over it under a shed. She confirms Ray will be on the organizational staff for the Magic Chevalier, and he says he plans to cheer for Amelia. Rebecca calls Amelia the big favorite for the rookie bracket. Curious, Ray asks if someone from the third family is at their academy. She tells him the Algrens usually attend another academy of sorcery, and mentions that the house has an eldest daughter who will be a good rival for Amelia. During a swordsmanship session, Amelia battles another student and wins. She asks the instructor if she can fight Ray next, and he agrees even though he didn't sign up for the tournament. They face off, and she wonders how he got so good. Amelia says she plans to hit him. Ray blocks all her attacks and recalls a familiar face while they fight. He goes to strike her but stops himself and kneels down. The instructor announces Amelia as the winner. Ray approaches her and tells her she's amazing. She tries to ask him what happened and who he is, but he doesn't respond. Albert glares at Ray while he talks to Amelia. At lunch, Ray's friends, including Clarice, have their meal. They praise Ray and Amelia for their swordplay. Evie asks where he learned to fight like that, and he says he had a master who taught him everything. He mentions she was tough on his training. They overhear other students talking about Ray's performance. Albert comes over to their table and challenges Ray to a duel, which he accepts. On a plain field, Albert and Ray's friends watch as they take their stances. They're worried about Ray's safety. Clara spots a barrier around the area and wonders if it's to block out noise. Ray asks Albert about the duel rules, and Albert tosses a real sword onto the ground. He tells Ray that sorcery is allowed in their duel. Albert attacks Ray, but Ray dodges and picks up the sword. A cloaked figure observes the fight from the trees. Ray notices Albert's anger. Albert claims he'll never lose to Ray. He conjures a magic ball of fire in his left hand, remembering how his family, despite being nobles, was humiliated and held a lower status in the middle tier. He swore to elevate his family's name. A voice urges him to kill Ray White. Ray dodges the spells aimed at him. He slashes through one spell with his sword and charges at Albert, saying he'll teach him about their vast world. Albert summons a dragon made of flames and sends it toward Ray. Ray splits the dragon in two, shocking everyone. He walks to his friends, who press him to reveal who he is. Suddenly, all the students except Ray are magically forced to the ground. The hooded figure steps forward, revealing herself as Miss Gray. Ray vows to tell his friends the truth, but insists he must fight the professor first. He approaches Gray and accuses her of being involved with the eugenics. She admits to provoking Albert. Ray gets angry with her, warning she should brace for the consequences of her actions. Gray says she plans to study the engram in his brain. She attacks him with 2 homing spells, but he dodges. She shifts her target to his friends, and he recalls his master's words. Ray unlocks his ability and uses it to protect his friends from being burned by Gray, freezing the surroundings. Gray notices he is the Ice Blade and attacks with fireballs. Ray easily destroys them with an ice sword. She launches an attack she believes a grand sorcerer can't stop, but Ray counters it with magic. Realizing her attacks aren't working, Gray tries to flee, but Ray cuts her ankle. She begs for her life and offers a deal. When she strikes at close range, thinking it'll succeed, the attack dissipates without hitting Ray. Understanding she can't win, she injects herself with a serum she's been experimenting with and transforms into a monstrous creature. Ray engages Gray in combat, and the barrier around them dissolves. Gray attacks in her humanoid form, but her strikes miss Ray. Confused, she wonders why they aren't working, and Ray explains that the ice blades represent his powers, but not his true nature. She launches an attack at him, but he slows it down before disintegrating it. Ray asks her about the main difference between fire and ice-based magic. She replies that it depends on whether the code is used to speed up or slow down the particle's vibrations. Ray tells her ice magic uses deceleration, and he can control both deceleration and anchoring so precisely that no average person can imitate it. He mentions he uses anti-material code and can revert spells to prime materia. Ray raises an ice blade and points it at the professor. She casts a mind control spell, but Ray uses his icicles to shatter them. His friends see him bleeding. Ray's movements slow down as he battles Gray. She leaps at him to attack, but he uses an ice spell to trap her in a giant crystal and make flowers bloom. Ray deactivates his powers, but his body suffers from the damage. His friends call out to him as they rush to his side, but he collapses before they can reach him. Ray remembers being saved by Lydia on the battlefield. She carries him back to their base. Abby asks Lydia who the child is, and Caroline wonders if Lydia is already a mother. She teases Lydia, prompting Lydia to send an ice blade at her. The colonel asks Lydia what happened, and she explains that the child was the only survivor on the battlefield. In a room, Abby tells Lydia that the orphanage refuses to take the child even though he's from their country. Abby suspects Ray comes from a special village that's independent from the government. She mentions the village is cursed, and that they practice voodoo, making Lydia ponder who would do such things in today's world. Abby then tells Lydia that Ray is awake. Lydia rushes to Ray's room immediately upon hearing this. Carol talks to Ray and asks for his name, but he stays silent. Lydia enters and asks for a status update. Ray finally tells her his name, and Lydia introduces herself. Sometime later, Lydia returns to the room to play ball with Ray, only to find Caroline showing him a picture book. Caroline tells Ray he's been reading with her. She tries to get him to call her by her nickname, but he won't. Lydia approaches him, rubs his head, and he smiles. Noticing his expression, Lydia says she'll share stories of her legendary bravery. Lydia asks Abby if she's found a place for Ray yet. They discuss their options since no place has been found. Abby wonders if Lydia is considering taking him in, reminding her that they are soldiers and she can't. Lydia thinks about what Caroline will say. The next day, Caroline refuses to let Ray go. She insists she has money and can take care of him. The colonel's assistant mentions they are on a mission, prompting Caroline to suggest bringing Ray to her house. The colonel asks for suggestions from Abby and Lydia. Abby proposes they give Ray to an orphanage, or find someone to adopt him. Lydia ponders what to do, sees Ray, and asks him what he wants. Ray hugs her and says he wants to stay with her. Lydia acknowledges his wish, and tells the colonel that her older sister's family has a child around Ray's age. She offers that Carol and Abby will help, and she'll take responsibility for him. The colonel asks if something made her decide to go this far, and she admits it. She believes Ray should have proper guidance. The colonel acknowledges her wish, but insists it shouldn't interfere with her duties. Lydia tells Ray that he'll be with them and should call her his master. 6 years later, during the Far East War, Ray enters the battlefield and finishes the fight. He returns to the camp to meet his master. Lydia and Abby are still on the battlefield. They see the bodies of those who died from excessive sorcery, use overheated bodies. Lydia points out that it could happen to anyone fighting. Once they reach their base, the colonel briefs his team about losing 2 of the 7 grand sorcerers. He warns them that the battles will get tougher and they need to focus even more. Corain tells Ray to step back since he's too young, but he says Lydia taught him that people with talent have a responsibility. Ray calls the others his family, and he's been preparing for tough battles ever since he enlisted. Howard pats him on the shoulder, promising to protect him no matter what. In the heat of battle, Ray sees Howard get brutally handled. Howard goes down right in front of him, and Ray snaps. He sees Howard walking away, telling him to keep living. Ray wakes up in a hospital bed with Lydia beside him. She touches his head, asking if he's okay. Ray sits up and apologizes for using his powers. Lydia tells him not to worry since she would have done the same in his position. She mentions that at some point, he won't need the Kronos lock anymore. Ray checks on everyone's well-being, and Abby assures him they're fine. She thanks him for a job well done. Lydia encourages him to lean in closer and pats him. She leaves, asking him to visit her when he can. Carla whispers in Ray's ear, worried about his well-being. She suggests he gets some rest before stepping away to rejoin Lydia. Abby tells Ray she was against him joining the academy, thinking he needed more time to recover. She explains that she didn't want him facing discrimination from the nobles. Lydia had come to her, bowing her head and asking her to enroll Ray, which Abby says is the first time Lydia has ever bowed to her. Lydia leaves the school compound, crying out of happiness that Ray is okay. Abby urges Ray to enjoy his school life as she leaves his room. Ray tears up, feeling his master's kindness. His friends come in, asking if he's alright, and he reassures them. Ray breaks the news about being the Iceblade sorcerer. He explains he fought alongside his master in the Far Eastern Wars, where he overheated in his last battle. Overheating, he clarifies, means a sorcerer loses control of their engram. He recalls everything turning into a wasteland after he overheated, left with his bleeding master clinging to him. He tells them he's using a spell called Kronos Lock to prevent overheating. Ray agrees with Amelia's assumption that he isn't great at sorcery because of the Kronos Lock. He laments losing many precious friends in battle and causing serious injuries to his master, along with taking countless enemy lives. He questions if he deserves to be with them after hiding his past and deceiving them. Amelia takes his hand, saying she wants him with them and calls him an extremely kind person. His remaining friends reassure him they are there for him. Amelia hugs him, saying they want to stay by his side. He remembers his comrades and sees Howard smile, making Ray smile in return as he thanks them. That night, Albert visits Ray and apologizes. Ray accepts the apology and asks what Albert can do to become stronger. Ray tells him to accept the people around him, and Albert realizes his mistakes. The following day at school, Caroline replaces Gray as Ray's new homeroom teacher. Amelia is taking a soak in her bathtub, feeling disbelief that Ray is the Iceblade sorcerer. She thinks Ray has moved on from his past, while she believes she won't achieve anything despite the high expectations on her. After getting out of the tub, she dries her hair and remembers Ray, who saw her in her underwear without getting flustered. She looks at herself and wonders if Ray isn't attracted to her. The next day in class, Caroline briefs everyone on the Chevalier tournament. She explains that first years will participate in the rookie tournament, while second and third years will compete in the main tournament. Their school can send 6 contenders because Rebecca won the last tournament. Caroline gives Ray a wink, sending shivers down his spine. After class, he rushes to Abby to report Caroline, asking her to fire Caroline, but Caroline overhears and chases him around. She wants to pat him like she used to. Abby sighs, saying Ray will have to give up since Caroline is a talented sorcerer. During the swordsmanship session, Ray and Clarice watch the participants duel. Clarice asks who he thinks will win, and Ray accurately predicts the winner, which gives Clarice the chills. They see Amelia defeat her opponent. Ray comments on Amelia's expression, likening it to someone performing a simple task. Amelia remembers her father's orders not to lose to Arion from the House of Algren. Ray asks Rebecca about Arion in his clubroom. She informs him that Arion has already been picked as Diom's representative. When Ray asks if Arion is strong, Rebecca affirms it, stating that Arion uses her noble pride as motivation in battle. Dina, who's also present, adds that she's seen Ariane fight and finds her movements graceful. Rebecca believes Amelia will give Ariane a good match. Amelia wins all her preliminary matches, earning a spot for the Magic Chevalier. People praise her, and Clarice notes that she won all her fights in under 10 seconds. Albert secures second place. Ray notices Amelia's expression and checks the book his master gave him. On her way home from school, Amelia encounters Ray. He congratulates her on her performance, but comments that her previous opponents were too easy. He asks if she wants to be stronger. Amelia mentions that Ariane will be competing in the rookie bracket of the Magic Chevalier, admitting that Ariane is stronger than she is. Ray offers to train her since they have some time before the tournament. Concerned, she hesitates, but he reassures her that he will only instruct her. Ray shows her the book from his master, explaining it was his foundation for training. Amelia agrees to the training, but Ray warns her it will be brutal. She recalls her past with Ariane, how they were close friends until Ariane beat her in swordplay, leading Amelia to reject her. She feels that mobility has become everything for her and insists that she needs to win to survive. The next day, outside the girls' dormitory, Ray meets with Amelia wearing a mask, calling himself Master White and introducing himself as her instructor. He takes her to Kafka Forest and brings her back. She struggles to get up, but he assures her that their routine for the day will be light and they'll continue the next day. Amelia's friends notice she's tired during class, as Ray pushes her to work hard to the point she tries to escape from him. Amelia dreams of being with her friends but gets interrupted by Ray, who wakes her up with a frying pan and a spoon. Rebecca and Dina meet Ray outside their dormitory. Dina gets angry at Ray for making a racket so early. Ray tells them they look good in their pajamas. Out of the corner of his eye, he spots Amelia trying to sneak out of the dorm. Ray chases after her but can't catch her. He sees Albert at the table. Albert asks how to get stronger, saying he's been training every day but still has doubts. Ray tells him there's no need to rush and reassures Albert that he has gotten stronger. In the library, Clarice complains about not understanding her homework. Elisa sits with her and fixes her hair. Ray enters while looking for Amelia. He puts on his mask and uses magic to find her exact location. Amelia hides inside a podium, grumbling that her training is too hard. Ray finds her and drags her along, saying he won't let go of her hand for running away from tea time twice. Elisa and Clarice watch as Ray pulls Amelia away. Ray meets with his environmental research club and asks them to cheer for Amelia to boost her morale. Evie supports him, convincing the members to cheer for her. The club president calls Ray over and hands him a bag, advising him not to be swayed by its contents. Ray promises he won't be. At the boys' dormitory, Evie wakes up to see a girl leaving his room. Outside the girls' dorm, Elisa and Clarice watch as Amelia runs and beats her previous record. She thanks them for coming out early to watch her practice. They notice a girl walking past and wonder who she is. Outside in the garden, Rebecca and Dina notice the girl walking by. Rebecca comments that the girl is wearing Diom's uniform. Dina is confused because the girl called them senpai as she passed. The girl thinks of herself as flawless and says she attends Diom Academy. Once she gets there, she hides in a big box made of cartons. A young girl cries out, asking where her sister is. The box opens, and the girl stares at the little girl. The girl introduces herself as Lily White to the little girl, who says her name is Tiana Olgren. Lily takes her hand and shows her around the school while looking for her sister. Some girls glance at Lily, and when she looks back, they faint. Tiana spots her sister and calls out to her. Ariane offers Lily some tea and thanks her for helping with her sister. Ariane mentions that Lily isn't a student at their academy, and when Lily responds in a deep voice, it reveals that she's Ray. Ariane is surprised and wonders how Ray managed to pull it off since he looked and sounded like a girl earlier. Ariane says she can't let Lily go without a reward for finding her sister. Lily asks to duel Ariane in swordsmanship, and they spar with wooden sticks, during which Ariane knocks Lily's stick away. Later, the two girls see Tiana off, and Lily compliments both Tiana and Ariane. Ariane blushes and asks if that's how Lily usually talks to girls. Lily explains that she was taught to compliment girls whenever he sees them. Ariane asks if Lily will compete in the sword tournament, but Lily says she will be among the organizers, helping her friend train. When Ariane asks who her friend is, Lily replies that it's Amelia, adding that she believes Amelia will win the rookie tournament. Ariane says she'll be looking forward to it. On their way to Arnold Academy, Lily sees a white-haired girl crying as she leaves the school. The girl trips, and Lily catches her, saying it would be bad for her if her fair skin got hurt. The girl stops Lily and asks for her name. Lily introduces herself as Lily White, and the girl responds that she's Maria Bradley. From her last name, Lily deduces that Maria is Rebecca's younger sister. Lily tells Maria that Rebecca has taken good care of her. Maria, hearing this, admits she has been unsure about studying at their school, but meeting Lily gives her a reason to. She asks Lily to wait for her next year before saying goodbye. Lily smiles as she watches Maria run off. Amelia is out of breath from training for the tournament. Clarice and Elisa encourage her, and she thanks them. Lily speaks to her using Ray's voice, and Amelia instinctively responds. They both realize it's Ray's voice, and stare at Lily. Amelia wonders why a girl has Ray's voice, and Ray explains he just completed a mission. The girls freak out when they realize it's Ray who transformed into a girl. The next day, Ray and his friends visit Lydia at her home. She welcomes them and teases Ray about growing taller. Evie introduces himself as Ray's dorm mate and buddy. Lydia notices he's built and advises him to keep working hard and stay friends with Ray. Amelia introduces herself to Lydia, who compliments her on her big chest. Elisa pulls out a book, claiming to be a fan of Lydia, and asks for her autograph. Lydia takes a pen from Carla and signs the book, making Elisa leap with joy. Clarice introduces herself, but stutters from nerves. Lydia mentions she heard Clarice wants to become a hunter, which surprises Clarice. Lydia tells her she knows the head of the Cleveland family and discussed the matter with him. She shows her hunter card, revealing she's a platinum hunter, stunning Clarice with her strength. Lydia tells her that being a noble doesn't mean she can't be a hunter, and encourages her to take her first step. Amelia introduces herself, and Lydia remembers meeting her at parties, wanting to talk to Amelia alone. Carla watches them leave and asks Ray to help her in the kitchen. In the kitchen, Carla tells Ray about some news she heard. She mentions the Grim Reaper from the Empire seems to be on the move. Ray recalls them being the assassination group of the Aval Empire and wonders what they're up to. Carla doesn't have much information but suspects they'll act during the Sorcery Sword tournament since many influential nobles will attend. She asks Ray to keep an eye on it. Lydia takes Amelia to her room and asks her what's bothering her. She shows Amelia a bunch of letters Ray wrote to her and mentions that Ray used to only talk about himself, but he's changed over time. Lydia tells Amelia that Ray knows she's hiding something from him but isn't sure if he should get involved. When Lydia asks if Amelia knows about Ray's past, Amelia confirms it. Lydia explains how she taught Ray everything and how he's become stronger than her. The one thing she couldn't teach him was about the human heart. She recalls that when she first met Ray, he was a kid who had completely shut himself off from the world. His emotions came back later, but he was surrounded by soldiers. Lydia explains that she asked Ray to come to the academy so he could learn to understand the human heart and make friends. She's happy he made friends and tells Amelia again that Ray is worried about her. She encourages Amelia to rely on Ray, since that's what friends are for. Later, Lydia and Amelia head back to the sitting room. The students are served meals and are told to change into their swimsuits when they're finished. They cheer when they hear this. That night in the dorm, Ray and Evie are training their muscles. Evie mentions he had fun that day, which makes Ray happy. Both of them have handprints on their faces, evidence that they got slapped by Abby and Carla. The next morning, Amelia goes through her early routine, and Ray notices she's gotten stronger. He remembers Lydia's advice from the day before she told him to help Amelia like she helped him. In the Kafka forest, Ray congratulates Amelia for keeping up with the drill and tells her they'll start her examination. Ray has a rose pinned to his chest and asks Amelia to cut it. He says he believes in her, and she draws her sword for the final examination. The day of the Sorcery Sword tournament arrives. The principal gives a speech to participants from 3 schools, telling them to compete with what they have, and she announces the tournament's start. As Amelia leaves the arena, Ariane calls out to her, noticing that Amelia has changed. Ariane says she'll be waiting for her in the finals. They shake hands in agreement. The semifinals are announced, and Amelia faces off against a student from another school. Abby judges the match and says it's time to begin. The student charges at Amelia, but she leaps over his attack. He moves closer, but the rose on his chest burns, signaling his defeat. Caroline, the announcer, tells Dina that Amelia managed to pull off her move by planting her sorcery in the ground to lure the student in. Her classmates cheer for her. Ray stands up to meet Albert, giving him his rose and encouraging him. Albert gets to the arena, where he's set to fight Ariane Olgren. The match starts, and they attack each other fiercely. They clash, but Ariane overpowers Albert and sends him flying back. She warns him that it'll be dangerous for him to keep going and suggests he concede. Albert states that he, in the past, would have given up, but the current him has acknowledged his weakness, and his heart refuses to quit. He stands up and charges at her. He strikes her with all his strength, but she uses sorcery to catch his sword and break it, then delivers a blow to his chest, knocking him out of the ring. Ariane is declared the winner. The Arnold Academy students worry about Amelia due to Ariane's overwhelming strength. As Ray heads toward the exit of the arena, he's being followed by an unknown figure. Caroline steps onto the stage and decides to motivate everyone for the finals by singing. Ray feels a strange presence approaching him. He looks back but doesn't see anyone. He notices a purple mist on the ground. His environmental research club leader walks toward him, and Ray wonders who he is. He is taken to a room where his master, Abby, and Carol are sitting around a table. Ray looks around and sees strange guards. Lydia tells him about the Hales family. Carla mentions that the family is responsible for the kingdom's intelligence agency. Lydia informs Ray that Carla is also one of the kingdom's intelligence agents. Ray is surprised to learn that Carla is an intelligence agent. Carla thanks him for looking after her brother. Ray wonders who her brother is, and then his club leader steps in. The club leader reveals his name is Lex Hale. Abby brings them back on track. She informs Ray that the Grim Reaper has infiltrated the Magic Chevalier. She concludes that their goal is to kidnap or murder the daughters of the top noble houses. She tells Ray to be vigilant since the chances of encountering them are high. She says Lex is in charge of the students' security and can help Ray if anything happens. Lydia advises Ray not to let his guard down and reminds him that he can use his abilities if things get tough. That night, Ray stares out the window of his room. He promises not to let the Grim Reapers interfere with Amelia and the others. The next day, Ray and his friends watch the main tournament. They see Rebecca advancing to the finals. Elisa and Clarice inform Ray that Amelia hasn't left her room. They suspect it's due to fatigue. They witness a student from another school, Lucas Forst, defeat his opponent in just 2 seconds. Ray observes Lucas and comments that there are some crazy people out there. Later that night, at Agrin's mansion, Ariane trains in a room and destroys the punching bag. Her dad walks in carrying her sister. Ariane apologizes for messing up the training room, but he tells her not to worry. Instead, he expresses excitement for her performance in the upcoming competition. Ariane promises to win. In Ray and Evie's room, the two of them are doing squats. Evie asks Ray why he doesn't go to see Amelia. Ray thinks about it and decides to take Evie's advice. He walks up to Amelia's door and sees Elisa and Clarice. They tell him it's now up to him to get Amelia to listen. They wish him good luck and head back to their rooms. Ray stands at the door and talks to Amelia. He apologizes for not getting closer to her. He explains he worries about accidentally breaking her heart since he doesn't fully understand human emotions. He asks her if she wants to share her feelings with him. Amelia opens the door and invites Ray in. She feels hopeless and shares that her suffering was nothing compared to his, yet he managed to overcome his struggles. She says no matter how hard she tries to meet others' expectations, she can't beat Ariane. Amelia sobs and asks Ray why she is alive. Ray walks up to her and holds her shoulders. He tells her their existence doesn't have to have a predetermined meaning, and that they need to create their own reasons for living. Ray tells her he wants to keep living alongside her. She asks if he doesn't mind having her around, especially since she's sad. He responds that he wants her around because he's seeing the real Amelia Rose. She hugs him and cries. Ray holds her hand until she falls asleep. He tries to leave, but she holds onto his hand. He recalls her final exams and how she managed to break through his mask when they fought. He tells her he believes in her and that she will win. The final tournament arrives. The Algren and Rose houses are present at the tournament to watch the finals. Ray meets up with his friends and tells them that Amelia will be participating. They cheer, and he notices that Clarice isn't with them. Elisa worries that Amelia might not have gotten enough sleep, but Ray reassures her that she did. He mentions that he spent the whole night with her. They freak out, and he confirms he was with her until morning. He leaves to give Amelia her rose. Clarice runs up, complaining about how busy she is and hoping she'll make it in time to watch Amelia's fight. A strange figure notices her and lurks in the hallway. Ray gives Amelia her rose and reassures her that she'll win the battle. She asks him for a hug, and he obliges. Lex tells Dina that something urgent has come up. He goes to find Ray in the hallway and says that Clarice has gone missing. He mentions he'll head below since he senses an ominous presence there. Lex says he'll check on Lydia and his sister before joining him down below. Amelia enters the arena and sees sees Ariane waiting for her. The announcer kicks off the final rookie sorcery sword tournament. The two girls wish each other luck and begin their battle. Ariane throws her sword aside and enhances her fist with sorcery. She strikes Amelia in the gut with the same move she used on Albert. She charges for a second strike, but Amelia parries it with her sword. Amelia gets pushed to the edge of the ring, and Ariane rushes to knock her out, but she gets hit with a butterfly rose spell at close range. Ariane defends herself and steps back. Rose stares at her and declares that she'll win the tournament. Ray goes underground and finds Clarice lying on the floor. He wakes her up, and she wonders what she's doing there. A barrier surrounds them, and assassins appear. Dina notices the mic isn't working, and Caroline suspects it's due to the barrier's effect. Ariane uses her trump card, and electricity surges from her body. She becomes incredibly fast and easily knocks Amelia away. Ray carries Clarice and tries to escape. She complains, but he tells her to hang in there. Ray unlocks Kronos and uses his ice abilities on the assassins. He freezes them, and Lex enters to regroup with him. The barrier disappears, and Ray runs with Clarice to watch Amelia's fight. Amelia struggles to get up and feels defeated, thinking she can't win against Ariane. Ray shouts at her from the entrance of the arena. He encourages her, and Amelia's sorcery grows stronger. She stands up and holds a butterfly. Amelia tells Ariane she won't be able to defeat her. She sends the butterfly at Ariane, calling it a butterfly effect. Ariane charges at Amelia and tries to punch her, but she nearly gets thrown out of the ring. She regains her balance and attacks Amelia again, but each time her strike hits the butterflies surrounding Amelia, she gets pushed away from her. Clarice wonders what's happening, but Caroline explains that Amelia's ability is related to the chaos theory of the butterfly effect. She mentions that it's a very rare skill that involves manipulating reality. Caroline says that no matter how hard Ariane tries, she won't be able to reach Amelia. Dina asks if that means Amelia will be invincible, but Caroline doesn't think so. Ariane rushes at Amelia, who sets up a butterfly that teleports her and then explodes upon impact. Blood drips from Amelia's nose, showing that she's pushing her engram to the limit. Amelia coughs up blood, and Ray notes that she's starting to overheat. Ariane charges at her again, and they exchange blows. The fight gets so intense that they're evenly matched. They go all out on their final attack, and Ariane's rose is destroyed. Amelia gently rests Ariane's head on her lap. When Ariane wakes up, she tells Amelia that she's gotten stronger, which makes Amelia tear up. Amelia says it's thanks to her friends. She adds that Ariane is a big reason she has come this far. She thanks Ariane, causing her to cry as well. Ariane vows to become someone Amelia won't be ashamed of. They hug tightly. Amelia recalls the promise Ariane made when they were little, that they would be friends forever. Dina wraps up the tournament, urging everyone to appreciate the girls. She declares Amelia the winner, and the crowd cheers for her. The heads of Rose and Algren applaud the girls. After the tournament, the fathers of the two girls meet and discuss how strong their daughters are, believing they'll only grow stronger over time. Ray visits Amelia in the clinic and asks how she's feeling. She's all bandaged up but feeling better, and recovery won't take long. Amelia reflects on everything she's done for the tournament. She remembers Ray's promise and gets flustered. She asks him if he knows what her power is, but he says he doesn't. He recalls their battle and acknowledges her exceptional talents. He believes talent is hereditary, but she only unlocked hers through hard work. Ray extends his right hand to shake hers, but seeing her bandaged right hand, they shake hands with his left instead. She thinks to herself that she would have felt like a bird in a cage if not for Ray's intervention. The next day, her friends wait outside her gate for her. They walk together to the arena to watch the finals. Evie tells them to cheer for Rebecca. Rose spots a bird and compares it to herself, running ahead of her friends happily. The Coliseum is packed to capacity. Rebecca, the previous Chevalier winner, is about to face Lucas Forst. The crowd cheers for both of them. Ray spots Maria watching the contest nervously. The battle begins, and Lucas pulls out his sword, using a secret technique to instantly eliminate Rebecca's flower. The crowd is in disbelief. Lucas Forst wins the tournament and leaves the arena. At the entrance, he spots Ray and refers to him as the Ice Blade Sorcerer. Ray acknowledges Lucas as the Peerless Blade Sorcerer and wonders why he entered the magic Chevalier meant for students. Lucas explains he did it to show Ray something. Lucas wants to challenge the Ice Blade and prove that the strongest sorcerer is the Peerless Blade. He asks Ray to help him with his overheating so they can fight at full strength. Lucas waves goodbye to Ray and says they should meet up again next year. Ray contemplates what the following year might bring. Abby, Carol, and Lydia head to the underground facility where the assassins are tied up. Carol uses her powers on the assassins, trying to make them confess. The moment she asks them to do so, their heads pop off one by one. They return to the tournament, and Abby gives a speech before wrapping things up. Ray suggests that his class run a maid cafe for their upcoming cultural festival. The class freaks out. as most can't imagine serving tea or dressing as maids because they're nobles. Ray remembers his meeting with Amelia the day before. She suggested they do a maid cafe for the cultural festival. Ray is skeptical since most of them are nobles, but she insists he should convince them. He asks her why she wants the noble girls to dress like maids. She makes excuses about how maids look good. Ray persuades the class that maids are usually in the shadows and he wants to highlight them with a new fashion style. Caroline takes off her robe, revealing the maid outfit she's wearing. The class erupts with joy at how cute it looks. Amelia and Ray leave the class after successfully convincing everyone to participate in the cultural festival as a maid cafe. Dina runs over to them to deliver news that Rebecca is getting engaged. Rebecca and her fiancé walk out of the school together. Lord Evan signs a contract with her father, ensuring his daughter's safety. That night, a hooded figure meets the glutton, who is devouring his victim's engram. The figure collects the brain of a dead person and tells the glutton he plans to acquire a specific vessel as soon as possible. Curious, the glutton asks who the vessel is. The hooded figure reveals he confirmed the vessel during the Magic Chevalier tournament. They team up and agree to get the vessel. The masked figure says he intends to use Rebecca Bradley to enact revenge. Rebecca bleeds from one of her eyes in her room. The next morning, Ray sees Rebecca watering flowers outside her dorm and greets her. She responds and asks if he's heard about her engagement. He says he has and congratulates her. Rebecca tells Ray she'll still come to the academy until she graduates. Ray expresses his happiness. She shakes his hand and says she looks forward to working with him. Ray then meets his friends as they discuss their maid costumes. Amelia asks Amelia if she'll wear hers. Amelia says it's embarrassing because the dress exposes her skin. Ray whispers in her ear that she'll look good in it, convincing her to agree. Amelia playfully kicks him, acting jealous. Ray joins the boys setting up the classroom, impressed by their work. He mentions that Elisa will be putting on her costume, which gets them fired up to work harder. Evie and Albert thank Ray, saying the class wouldn't have come together without him. Ray goes to his flower club room and tells Dina about his class's maid cafe preparation for the festival. She's surprised nobles would agree to be maids. Ray notices some members missing and asks about it. Rebecca explains that her engagement has caused other members to stop coming. She mentions that the student council secretary was originally engaged to her fiancé, which made it seem like she stole him. Other members have sided with the secretary and are boycotting the meetings. Ray offers to help, but they tell him not to, since he has his maid cafe to focus on. He insists on helping, and Rebecca agrees. As Ray leaves the club room, Dina rushes after him to ask a favor. He immediately agrees without knowing what it is. She shares her hunch about Rebecca's engagement, and feels it's odd because nothing seems right between the Bradley family and Lord Evans. She suspects Lord Evan and asks for Ray's help to find out what's going on. He assures her she can count on him. Later that night, Ray visits Lydia and apologizes for the late hour. He asks about Lord Evan's background. Lydia asks Carla, who tells them all she knows about Evan's family, revealing there's nothing shady except that the engagement seems rushed. Lydia asks Carla to dig for more info on Evan, which she says will take about a week. Lydia then asks Ray what his class plans to do at the cultural festival, and he tells her they'll be running a maid cafe. She wonders what they hope to achieve, but Ray points out that nobody dislikes a maid costume. He looks at Carla and mentions how attractive she is, making her blush. He admits that he thought of her when Amelia first suggested the idea. Carla turns beet red, making Lydia jealous. Lydia imagines herself in a maid costume, which makes Ray laugh. He jokes that there's no way a gorilla can be a maid. Lydia gets mad and playfully threatens him. Ray apologizes profusely, and she clears the air by letting him know that she and Carla will be at the school cultural festival. Rebecca showers in her bathroom, washing blood from her eye. She recalls having the same nightmare featuring Ray, and wonders why he keeps appearing in her dreams. She goes to the mirror and sees her eyes glowing. Maria asks Rebecca why she's up so late, and she says she took a shower because she was sweaty. Maria notices the blood on the small towel Rebecca is holding and questions her. Rebecca claims she had a nosebleed. Maria brings up the engagement, but Rebecca insists it's fine. Rebecca wishes Maria luck in finding love and walks away. As soon as she enters her room, Rebecca breaks down in tears. Maria was born with white hair, red eyes, and very pale skin. She always looked different, leading others to treat her differently. Rebecca always told her she loved her and thought she was pretty. Maria grows up and gets her ears pierced, which doesn't sit well with the Bradleys. Her mother scolds her, but Maria responds that she can be whoever she wants, since she isn't their pride and joy like Rebecca. Maria sees Rebecca looking sad and realizes it's about her engagement. When she confronts Rebecca, she gets yelled at. She runs out of Rebecca's dorm and encounters Lily White. The cultural festival is approaching, and Ray's class has decorated their area like a cafe. The girls are dressed in maid costumes and love them. Ray compliments all of them. Amelia arrives, and Ray tells her she looks gorgeous. She brings Elisa along, who seems shy, but Ray showers her with compliments too. Amelia gets jealous and starts hitting Ray, mentioning mentioning that she knows about him helping the student council. Clarice shows up dressed as a ghost, telling them her class is doing a haunted house. They notice how unusual her costume looks and compliment her. Ray smiles, thinking he can take their attraction to another level. Abby asks Caroline how Ray's class is doing, and Caroline says they are united, with Ray at the center. Abby gazes at a picture frame of herself and Ray with the military guys. Later that evening, after school, Ray notices Rebecca leaving and offers to walk her home. He confirms she no longer lives in the dorm, and she says it's because she's engaged. She mentions she'll be moving out after the festival. She asks about his class, and he replies they are united to achieve a goal. She smiles and tells him she can't wait to see it. Evan spots them and approaches. Evan and Ray introduce themselves, and Evan thanks Ray for walking his fiancée home. Ray leaves Rebecca with Evan, watching as Evan walks her home. He recalls Dina's warning about Evan Bernstein. Lex meets up with Ray and takes him to a meeting. During the meeting, Carla tells Ray that there are no humans living in the Bernstein Manor. It seems to have been abandoned for several years. Abby asks if Evan has been attending aristocratic meetings and sorcery summits, and Carla confirms he has. She suggests he has been maintaining his deception for a long time. Lydia concludes that Evan is after Rebecca's sorcerer's eyes. Abby speculates that Evan is likely a collector of sorcerer's eyes and is involved in eugenics. A masked, hooded figure meets the glutton in an unknown location. The glutton asks about the meeting, and the figure responds that they are almost there. He waits for Rebecca to open her kreutz for the gates to Akasha to unlock. He removes his mask, revealing himself to be Evan Bernstein. He mentions someone named Lise and makes a promise. Rebecca is crying in her room, remembering how Evan tried to touch her eye, and she slapped his hand away. Evan laughs at her and says it's a decision of House Bradley so that her father can be at the top of the three great houses. He tells her that's why he signed a contract with her father and threatens her regarding Maria. As she cries, blood trickles from Rebecca's left eye socket. Rebecca wakes up and finds herself in a memory, on the battlefield. She sees young Ray holding a dead soldier and calling out his name. Ray tries to heal Howard, but Lydia tells him to stop. When he asks why, she says he already knows. Lydia orders him to go with her, since their mission isn't done. Ray resists at first, but Lydia slaps him and reminds him it's a battlefield. She takes his hand, and they walk away, leaving Rebecca to notice Ray's tears. The next day in the student council room, Rebecca watches Ray helping her with paperwork and wonders if he was the one from her dream. Maria calls Ray over to talk, and Ray compliments her white hair and skin, making her blush. She mentions being close to Dina. Ray asks if their conversation concerns Rebecca, and Maria confirms it. She talks about how different she is from her perfect sister. Ray takes her hand and promises to save her sister, telling Maria that she has a pure, beautiful heart and not to put herself down. Maria leans on him and calls him an idiot, while Rebecca eavesdrops, curious about why they want to help her. Later, Rebecca is on her bed, recalling Maria holding Ray and wondering what she was doing at her school. She thinks Ray is oblivious to his effect on girls, but wonders how he got close to her sister. She decides it's not her place to comment on their relationship. In Ray's room, Evie asks what he's doing, and he says he's reading a love story. Evie is surprised he reads romance, and Ray explains it's about a girl who's considered a demon. She lives away from others but meets a young man one day. Since she hasn't interacted with humans, she doesn't understand human emotions. Through her relationship with the young man, she learns about the human heart, but he starts avoiding her because her powers fascinate him. Ray says the girl waits a long time wanting to know her emotions for him. Evie finds the story depressing, and Ray hopes the demon girl finds happiness. The preparation for the cultural festival goes smoothly. Late at night, Ray sleeps in his room and dreams of the past, remembering Howard's burial and how depressed everyone was. In his dream, Rebecca approaches him and asks who he is. He wakes up realizing it was just a dream, and a tear of blood falls from his eye. The next morning, Ray does his morning jog and sees Rebecca. They talk about the cultural festival starting that day. She starts to ask about his past, but stops and wishes him a happy festival, to which he thanks her. The cultural festival begins. Ariane and Tiana go to Arnold Academy to check it out. Maria looks for Ray at school while Amelia serves her customers as Ariane searches for Ray. Ray uses sorcery to change into Lily and enters the class as a maid. All the customers and Ray's friends note how cute Lily is. Using her charm, Lily captivates everyone. Abby and Carol patrol the Academy Tower, but Carol finds it boring and wishes she could tease Ray during the festival. After leaving the maid cafe, Ray changes back to himself and hangs out with Rebecca. He recalls Dina asking him to show Rebecca a good time. Rebecca walks close to him and holds onto his arm as they explore different classes together. After a fun time, Ray escorts her back to the student council room. She thanks him for his efforts and tries to tell him about the firework festival happening the next day, but stops and goes inside. After the first day of the cultural festival, as closing time approached, Maria returned to her mansion station, holding a photograph of herself and Lily, who has the same white hair. Someone tells her that her sister is at risk of dying if things continue as they are. Maria drops the photo. Ray is in the meeting room with his masters. He asks Lydia what she meant when she said Rebecca is going to die. Lydia reassures him, saying that he's there to help save Rebecca. Bruno Bradley walks in and asks Ray to save his daughter. In Ray's dorm, Evie asks him to let him know if anything comes up. Ray responds that he shouldn't bother anyone else. He thanks Evie for thinking of him. In the forest, Evan Bernstein and the Glutton are with a group of mysterious figures. Evan tells the Glutton that Kreutz will awaken the next day. The Glutton tells him to go ahead as long as he gets to eat the ice blade. In Rebecca's room, she cries as blood spills from her eyes, memories of different people rushing in. Maria stands outside, weeping for her elder sister's pain. The next day, while Ray is jogging, he sees Rebecca and stops. She begs him to look after Maria. Ray is confused, but she mentions that she's engaged and will soon leave the Bradley house, worried she'll have less time to see her. Carla and Lydia meet up with Abby and Carol. She tells them it's time to go. Carol complains about needing to work during the festival, but Lydia insists she get to work. Carol responds that she's already done. Lily tries to lift Maria's spirits, making her smile. Maria gives her a hug and asks for courage. They take a photo together, then Maria leaves. Rebecca approaches Evan, who takes her hand and teleports out of the school. Amelia talks to Lily, doubting that Lily could also win over Maria. Amelia says she won't let her guard down. Lily tells Maria he has to go, and when Amelia tries to stop him from talking, he runs off. Her friends ask her what's wrong. Far from the academy, Evan sets Rebecca down and creates a bubble barrier, telling her he's about to break her. In Kafka's forest, the Glutton stands with a masked hollow figure, ready with hordes of monsters, as the figure gives him the cue to start hunting. Lily runs into the forest and fights off many monsters. Some hooded figures attack Ray, but Amelia uses the butterfly effect to teleport them. She and her friends jump into the battle to help him out. Maria runs toward Rebecca, and Evan notices she followed them. They join forces and eliminate the monsters in the forest. The Glutton targets Amelia to take her engram, but Ray steps in to protect her. The masked figure tells the Glutton to head to a hill where he can take care of things. Amelia tells Ray to follow the Glutton, while she and her friends deal with the masked figure. Ray takes off his wig and runs. Ray remembers a previous meeting with his master and the head of the Bradley house. He learns that Kreutz appears once every few hundred years. Ray asks if Rebecca is the Kreutz, but Lydia insists she isn't. Lydia explains that she can't control her sorcerer's eye. Bradley states that if Rebecca can't control her powers, she won't live to see 20. He adds that Maria's albinism is due to the after effects of Rebecca being born as the Kreutz. Bradley worries that Kreutz might also affect Maria, begging Ray to save his daughter. Ray climbs the hill, heading toward where Rebecca and Maria are. A figure lands where Maria and Rebecca are. Evan approaches him and asks if he's the one called Morse. The mask comes off, revealing that Evan was behind it. He talks to another version of himself, which transforms into the white-haired woman Marie saw recently. Evan calls her Lise and mentions it's been 10 years since they last met. He uses magic to hold her and complains that she always messes with his plans. He says she was the one who kept his name alive even after he was all alone. He plans to end things by using Kreutz to reach Akasa. He creates a flame around Rebecca, but Lise puts it out and sends Rebecca far away using magic. She pushes Evan away and locks him out with a barrier. Lise approaches Maria and asks if she's made her decision. She reassures her not to worry and to let Ray handle it. Maria wonders why Lise mentioned Ray, but Lise points out that Ray is already there. Ray lands, and the Glutton gets excited to battle him. Ray calls the Glutton Paratrogo and claims he's a sorcerer who consumes other people's engram. The Glutton charges at Ray, but Lise blocks him. Lise tells him to wait because she needs to discuss something important with Ray. She introduces herself to Ray as the sorcerer of fabrication. Ray asks if she orchestrated everything, and she confirms. She suspects Lydia and the others know a little about her plans. She tells Ray she intends to let Rebecca overheat while he seals it. Ray agrees and unlocks Kronos. She says he's the only one who can pull it off because he resonates with her. Lise mentions that if it's to save Rebecca, she can use any method necessary since that's the deal she made with Rebecca's father. Ray notes she seems unconcerned, and she explains she has her objectives. The Glutton breaks through Lisa's barrier, and she asks Ray to handle him. Ray unlocks his magic and fights the Glutton, but realizes the overwhelming strength he has. Lise leaves them and enters the barrier where she confines Evan. Lise tells him he can't reach her, but he refuses to accept that and uses a syringe on himself. Lise tells him she knows all about his plans and the potion he injected. She explains that what he injected will temporarily cause his engram to overheat. Evan attacks, but he can't reach her. Lise uses her prima materia on him and activates apotheosis. Evan gets engulfed in bright light and screams as he burns. Lise tells him that the destructive force she possesses is causing his engram to self-destruct. She burns him down to the ground, and he falls. Evan looks at her while bleeding all over and asks if the power he felt came from the strongest sorcerer. She dismisses that claim, saying the strongest sorcerer is the Ice Blade. She explains that Ray exists in a completely different dimension. She adds that if a sorcerer were to rule the world, it would probably be Ray White. Lise declares that the Ice Blade sorcerer shall rule the world. Meanwhile, Ray's friends defeat all the nearby monsters. They struggle to catch their breath as they celebrate how far they've come. A huge monster appears and attacks Ray's friends, but the Grand Sorcerers destroy its attacks. They praise the girls for their efforts and say they'll take care of the remaining battles. The Grand Sorcerers quickly finish off their enemies, leaving the students amazed. Ray battles the Glutton and forces it to use one of its strongest moves. He gets knocked away, and Rebecca worries about him. Maria yells at Rebecca, blaming her for Ray's dire situation. She accuses her sister of bottling up her feelings and not speaking up. The Glutton grabs Ray and pins him to the wall, saying it will savor him. Ray casts a restoration compression spell and creates a red sword. He stabs the Glutton, freezing each body part the sword touches into a red color. The Glutton praises Ray as it freezes all over. Ray locks his powers and collapses to the ground. Rebecca tries to rush to Ray, but Maria stops her, blaming Rebecca for always being the good girl. Rebecca tells Maria that she doesn't know what she's been through. She yells at Maria, saying she's suffered so much for her. Maria slaps her and calls her an idiot, crying that Rebecca acted out of selfishness and never asked for her help. Rebecca pins her sister to the ground and yells that she has no choice but to endure it. Rebecca hits Maria on the cheek for being selfish and says she hates her. Maria stands up and tells Rebecca she should wish for her to disappear. Rebecca sobs, saying she can't wish something so bad upon her because she's precious to her and she loves her. Her eyes glow and she starts overheating. Maria runs to her, shouting her name. Ray wakes up and sees Lise teleporting Evan to his side. He asks her if Evan is important to her. Lise tells Ray that Evan was seduced by a demon and got jealous, calling him a foolish man for throwing away his humanity. Ray looks at her and sees the image of the demon girl from the book he was reading. A tear falls from Lisa's eyes as she says things don't always go as planned. She urges Ray to hurry to Rebecca. Lydia tells Ray's friends to stay away from Rebecca since she has started overheating. Ray enters the golden mana created by Rebecca and tells Maria to step back. Ray approaches Rebecca and sees her shedding tears of blood. She says she said horrible things to Maria and assumes Ray must hate her. Ray reassures her that conflicts happen and that Maria still loves her. He holds her cheek and kisses her, then uses Chronos Lock to stop her overheating. Later that night, Bruno Bradley tells Lex that the Ice Blade saved both of his daughters and asks Lex to convey his gratitude. Rebecca gazes at the sky and hears footsteps. She calls out for Ray, but Amelia passes by and apologizes for not being him. Rebecca tells Amelia that it's almost time for her and Ray to watch the fireworks. She insists she isn't as close to Ray as Amelia is and plans to spend the night with him, which makes Amelia jealous. Amelia mentions that she had a good time with Ray. Rebecca says her soul and Ray's are bound together. Amelia warns Rebecca to prepare for tough times because Ray is popular with girls. The two argue back and forth until they shake hands and vow not to lose to each other. Clarice and Arissa join them, questioning why the two get to have all the fun. Ray meets up with them, and they all watch the fireworks together. The next day, Ray visits Howard's grave and notes that it's been a while since his last visit. He shares his experiences as a student with the tombstone. He smiles and thanks both Howard and his master for looking out for him. Rising, Ray declares that he has friends. Ariane approaches Ray while he's alone and asks him to enter the Magic's war with her.